right, we're back with another episode of Todd's Video Games and More. And today, we are featuring Atari's 1981 follow-up to Asteroids, Space Duel. So maybe you've not heard of Space Duel, and I don't remember it back in the day, but it is a sought-out game. It's a color vector game, which means it has very bright colors, sharp lines, all of that. And you can play one player or two player, and you can play co-op or against each other. Now when I picked this up, it wasn't Space Duel anymore. It was Street Fighter 2. It had been converted somewhere along the way. My lovely wife Cindy uncovered the side art to reveal Space Duel. I was intrigued. I decided, let's make it Space Duel again. It wasn't the easiest thing to do. As a matter of fact, I was missing just about everything. I was missing the marquee, the monitor, the control panel overlay, the boards, the power supply. You name it, I had to add it back in. In the end, we were able to make it Space Duel again. So I'm going to show you how. I hope you enjoy it, and let's get to it. Okay, so we're on our way to Bloomington, which is about a half an hour drive, to pick up what I saw on Facebook Marketplace as Street Fighter 2. But it's not really a Street Fighter 2. Well, it is right now. But it was originally a Space Duel, which is a color vector game from Atari back in 1981 or 1982. And I'm really intrigued to see this and considering converting it back to Space Duel. So we're going up, we're going to pick it up, and we'll see what we get.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Gage told me a lot about you. It's pretty funny.
Oh, no.
I saw your name and I went, man, that's gotta be the same guy. There's no shot.
No. So
I said that they had an IT guy who brought it in forever ago, and he was like, once he left, he just left it here.
This?
Yep. That's part of the backing.
Little reassembly.
It's loaded up and ready to head home. So I like to use these 2-inch rubber heavy-duty swivel casters. They look like this. They make some that can lock as well, and sometimes I use those, but what I found is that games don't really move or slide around even with these on, so I don't like these getting caught and locking up when I don't want them to. So I'm gonna buy 4 of these at almost $8 a piece, and we'll get out of this Lowe's. All right, we're home, safe and sound. Time to unload. Okay, so it's in the garage along with other projects in progress. This one may take a little while. It's number 3 in line right now. We put the back on it before we left so that we wouldn't accidentally tear up this monitor. Now, the guy said that the Street Fighter worked in it, but player 1 didn't work. And when we had the back open, that's because player 1's control harness wasn't even connected. So I might hook a few things up just to see what this really does. And here's what it looks like with the back off. It does have the Street Fighter II board there. And you can see the old original Atari. So this was serial number 767 on the Space Duel. It does have some of the control switches up there still in the coin box. This down here is probably all added because there should have been a big brick down there and Atari power supply. So most of the components we need, wiring harnesses, all that gone. There's the player one control harness there. And this is what it's supposed to plug into. So I'm gonna plug it in and just see if it works. Well, it's definitely Street Fighter 2. And he said it was dim, it is dim. It's also a little blurry and the monitor's probably covered in grime and who knows what. So I'm not too worried about that. The screen does have some screen burn, I can already see that, which would be a problem if I want to use this monitor for a different game. Well, player one works now. Just needed to be plugged in. Behind here. Well, no wonder you couldn't see the screen. Didn't have any Christmas.
Gosh, dang it. I don't think I've seen one that bad.
That is filthy.
That takes Smokey to a whole new level.
Now check this out. There's a Tecmo down here. So that means at some point this was even another game. And you can almost see it because there's a black paint, there's a blue paint, and it almost looks like there was a different art at some other point on this as well. So Tecmo is definitely not Street Fighter II World Warrior, or this is actually Street Fighter II Hyper Fighting, which is kind of cool. So I wonder what else this control panel has been. Huh. Before, after. Always clean the screen. Yeah, that's pretty good. Hey, that's even trying to work. So we have a working Street Fighter 2. Do we keep it? I've already owned 2 separate Street Fighter 2 cabinets. Now this one I picked up locally back in 2021. It was a poor conversion from something else. The controls were all clustered together. So I took it apart, found the original game underneath would have been Guerrilla War. I mean, look at the holes in the control panel. I stripped down the sides and painted it black. Just like that. Rebuilt the failing monitor and swapped the tube. Added an aluminum top plate with the holes where they were supposed to be for Street Fighter 2, and an overlay with new buttons, and ended up with a beautiful game. It's still in my arcade, so I don't really need another one. Yet I know very little about Space Duel. I mean, it is a 2-player sequel to Asteroids, with color graphics, enhanced gameplay, and it does appear to be quite collectible, ranging in value between, about $1,200 to maybe $1,600. And I love restoring games back to their original form. So Space Duel, it is. I'm doing a little test here to see what will easily take off this blue and an underlayer of black underneath it. I've got right now some Goof Off graffiti remover spray, which has been my go-to. It seems to do really well with the blue, not so great with the black. Then I've got this latex paint cleanup. I'm not sure that any of this is latex, but we'll see. And then we have some citrus strip that I've used just a little bit, and it seems to be a little better at the black. I've rubbed off a little black with it, but I think the blue has to come off first and then the black, so we may have to use multiple products. I think what's working best is a citrus strip. It takes off both layers pretty nicely, has no effect on this underlying vinyl. And then this Goo Gone latex paint cleanup on a rag, we'll get all of it cleaned up afterwards. So I think that's the plan moving forward. The citrus strip usually doesn't work very well for me for much of anything, but here it seems to be doing magic. So the overall goals with this today are to at least strip down one side so we can get an idea of what that's going to look like. Mostly for fun, because we can do that anytime. Also, to take this monitor out, the Street Fighter II monitor out, so we can get it cleaned up and start working on it. And also this control panel. So whoever did this was a little bit of a hack. You can see where they've cut and tied wires back together and just taped them. It would have been just as easy if they had the pins and a crimper to add new pins to these and stick them back in here. So either they didn't want to do it that way or they didn't have the right equipment to do it that way. But in any case, we don't need really this for what we're going to build in the future anyway. So I'm going to get this out so we don't have it in the way of other things, and we'll go from there. And I'll also go ahead and get this Street Fighter board out of here. And it's luckily just easy enough. We removed the JAMA harness here and this extra harness up here, and we should be able to get the board right off. I have a lot of questions as to what was going on down in here. So there's this hanging here that's just kind of tied across and soldered across to another. That's a ground wire, obviously. Don't know where it went. There's an awful lot of hacking in here with just wires wire nutted together and just hanging loose here and there, and extra pieces and parts. I don't know where they go to. So yeah, definitely a bit of a mess. I'm surprised it worked as well as it did. Opus is here to check out the new project. What do you think, Opus? I know you're not our cat. You're somebody's cat, but you don't live with your owner. Hey, this is our garage. All right, let's do a little planning. So first of all, we need to uncover the side art and see how that looks. Hopefully we can use the existing side art, which would be awesome. We're gonna need a marquee to go across the top. So the original was on glass. They do make reproductions, but I do like originals. We'll need a monitor. It's a special color vector monitor. The one that came with it is a raster monitor, so it is not compatible with Space Duel. And color vector monitors are rare. We'll need a new control panel overlay with the red and the green for Space Duel. We'll need buttons, we'll need the wiring. We'll need a power block and an AR2 power board. We also need the game board to actually run the game. It's a lot. We're basically building the whole game from scratch, but we can do it. That looks awesome. Getting right on through it, aren't we? That is quite honestly hard to believe. I mean, it was just a blue and black mess. Look at that art. I mean, it's got some little nicks or scratches here and there, but for being that old, that's amazing. Now we still have the other side to do, but we've got the hang of it now, so we'll get to it, I guess, tomorrow. And now it's time for the other side. This side is coming along great. Now the art on this side has some pretty big scuffs and scrapes in it. It's a whole bunch of vertical white lines scraped into it over here. So this one's going to require a little more touch-up before it'll be done. Now here's the control panel, and it has been altered. Street Fighter II. So it has the 6 buttons for the players, the joystick, start buttons here. And if you look down inside, you can see where holes used to be for the buttons that we need. So they basically just epoxied over them, cut new ones in, and then on the other side, when they were done, because of all those holes, they put this plexiglass on top to cover that up, and it looks like crap. So it is time to disassemble. There's what the inside looks like. Some of those buttons are basically glued in with the epoxy itself, which is unusual. There's the aftermath. Ugh, gross. But overall, it looks pretty good. We do have our scratches here and there, and the bottom of this side has a lot more of the, a lot more damage to the particle board down there that I'm going to have to recreate with some Bondo. So that will be a step down the road for this one. But the kind of the cool thing is how white the whites are under here. I think the paint over the top of it really kind of protected it from just general yellowing and aging. Okay, let's get this control panel overlay off. I have a heat gun, a bladed scraper, a little heavier duty scraper, some gloves. And the way this is going to work is, I hope, this one's not even on there all that well, so some places I can just peel it up, but otherwise I'm going to heat it up and lift off sections at a time, and hopefully it'll all come off this easily, and we'll see kind of what was underneath. So I'm looking at this trying to figure out what is going on, and it looks like there was some other graphic up here perhaps, and we have this Tecmo on the back, and when I started pulling the Tecmo it was going to pull a big layer off the front, but I really want to see what this is, so I'm going to use some paint remover and see if we can't spot what's underneath it. So this is the next layer down, and I don't know what this is. I think it's just a generic overlay. The Tecmo one is even underneath this, so I'm going to have to keep on digging even deeper. All right, so that's most of it. We've got a little work to do to clean up a little bit of the remaining debris and all of the adhesive that's all over the place. You can see where they filled in the original holes here and there. A couple up here. It's hard to fill a hole in where it will actually stick. It's pretty easy to pull them right off. Now I have this thing laying on its back, and as we look overall, this side looks pretty good. It's nice and intact, but this corner has some significant damage. And if we measure across the top, we're gonna find that it's, I think, 25 3/8 inch wide. And at the bottom, it's 25 and almost 7/8 inch, almost 26 inches wide. So the bottom over here has expanded out. We also have this part that needs to be pulled in. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take some fiberglass resin, which is one of my favorite little products for patching up particle board like that. And I've got some clamps, a board to cut down to give us a support on each side. And we're gonna see if we can resin and squeeze this thing back together. All right, this stuff's pretty easy to use. We basically are gonna measure out, and I love these little disposable measuring cups. We're gonna measure out 1 ounce of resin, just like that. And then we're gonna do 10 drops of the liquid hardener. Great. And we're gonna mix it up. And I just have a couple craft sticks here. And we'll make sure we get it nice and mixed. We've got some pretty good working time with this, maybe 8 to 10 minutes, which is plenty of time for what we're doing. Great, that should be mixed. Now, I have these monoject syringes. You can buy them on Amazon or ask an oral surgeon for some extras because that's what they give you when you have an infection after they've taken out wisdom teeth and you need to clear out the hole. Hopefully that has never happened to you, but it has happened to me, and I did have extras just from that. Now the stuff's pretty thick. Well, it came out pretty easily, but you can trim the end of this with some cutters if you need it to flow a little better. So basically what I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna inject it in to all these cracks and crevices. Now we're not too worried about if we accidentally fill in the hole for the T-molding because it's pretty well shot and trashed anyway. So basically we're just trying to get everywhere we can in here to give this some solid structure. So I'm just gonna look way down underneath and I'm gonna flow it all over the place. And then way up here structurally, way in here. And then I'm just gonna drizzle it all over the outside. Now we're gonna take our boards and our clamp. And this is kind of the tricky part with one person here. I should have yelled for Cindy. I'm gonna start at the top, like this, and I'm gonna crank it down. Okay, so that one's just to get it started. We know this is the right width already. Now, grab another one. Okay, now I'm gonna measure outside to outside. So 27 almost exactly on this wood. And 27 almost exactly on this wood. Okay, so I've added another one to squeeze in on the inside. So I'm gonna measure that, make sure I've got the right width. All right, so now we've got it. We can just let that set. And I'll probably leave it clamped until tomorrow and we'll pop it apart and we'll see if it stays. I've also got these two pieces from the top of the back door that I'm eventually going to try to mend together. And I've got them clamped down and squeezed back down for their bad particle board as well. It's been about 24 hours now, so I'm going to take these clamps off and see if we can hold our thinner dimension. Well, at first glance it looks good. So we are 25.5 here, 25.5 there. Now I've done the same fiberglass resin trick on the top, going down the sides like this. And in the very front, we are exactly the same width down here as we are up there. And that's kind of important because that will show with the T-molding. If you're too wide, you'll see it flay out at the bottom. And hopefully this will stick and we can keep it exactly right. Today I'm going to repair this corner and this bottom edge right here. We have a good corner over here and we know what kind of angle we have. So I'm going to take my board, I'm going to line it up on this side and I'm going to mark it just like that. So I'm going to cut this, and then I'm going to be able to lay it over this side and clamp it in and know exactly how we want this angle to go. Now I've got a template for how I want this corner to go, which will make adding the Bondo through here much easier than doing it by hand. And I've got a board clamped, so we're going to fill in our bad spots here, bad spots here, bad spots here. Now, dealing with Bondo. Well, if you've seen my other videos, you know sometimes I love it, sometimes I hate it. But it does the job. So I don't have a ton of it left. I'm using this high bond filler. I'm gonna grab a big glob of it. Just like that. I'll put it on my pad. And then we're gonna take some of the cream hardener. And there's not really much science to this, except for my cream hardener is hardening up. Just put a little line across here. And then we're just gonna mix it back and forth. We need that blue to get thoroughly mixed into the gray. And give ourselves a nice, even color putty. All right, so now we got a good paste here. So I'm gonna bring it up here. I'm gonna start working it in to our corner. Now we don't have to fill the whole corner at once. And maybe we don't even wanna fill the whole corner at once. We're gonna get ourselves started for sure. And it wants to run. So we're just basically shoving it in there because we don't want air voids. So I'm gonna push it in really nice. We've got about 2 minutes, 3 minutes of working time before this stuff gets real putty-like and becomes much harder to deal with. Okay, so I'm trying to keep out of the sun with my mobile workbench here. That is almost completely set. We'll sand it here in a minute. Over here, well, I'm working on kicks today as well. And down here, I have our control panel. So if you're watching the Space Duel video, this is the one that I'm cleaning today. And if you're watching the kicks video, this is the one I'm cleaning today. I'm going to be using Rapid Remover to get this adhesive off, and it does a really good job. It really eats through it fast. Hopefully I have enough to do both. Now this stuff works really fast. So it says 60 seconds, and that's pretty accurate, but you have to keep going. It's a little bit of a layer, one layer after another. And so once you sprayed it on, oh, this is pretty hard stuff. It's starting to go to work. I think I need a little bit more. You just want to keep it wet and let it keep working. Well, that's about as cleaned off as I can get that. The surface is a little rough where they've cut in all these holes, so the rest of that I will sand off. All right, that's set long enough. Let's get this thing popped off, perhaps. Well, I can't sand right up against the edge of it. Maybe that would be smart. Let's do that first. And here is our wonderful new corner. And also on the front. Now we have some fill to do still in the middle and up above, like right in this corner here. And I will do that next. Now for the remainder of this edge, I'm going to use this icing, which is very, very similar to the Bondo, but it comes out of a little tube, so you can just squirt a little line. You still have to use a hardener or mix it up a little bit. but it's not for thick coats, but it does a great job on little edges like this. By the way, that's a squirrel in the tree screaming at me. Not sure exactly why. Now I have my router and I have this 1/16 inch or perhaps 3/32 inch. I don't remember anymore, but it's a kerf blade. It's designed directly for cutting in these T-molding slots. I've got the level of this exactly even with the level of the existing, so I'm just gonna go all around it. It's important to go in a direction where you're cutting into the Bondo there, otherwise you can chip a whole bunch of it out. So here I go. And now we have this nice, beautiful groove all the way around, and we can put the T-molding back in. Okay, so the T-molding gets kind of bad about right in here, and I can't push it back through. So I'm gonna cut it, and I'm gonna go ahead and add a new piece. It's gonna wrap around, and it's gonna stop right in the middle of the back over here. Now normally I will replace all the T-molding, but the rest of this T-molding is pretty good. So I think I'm just gonna do a little bit for now, and then I might do the rest later. I'm gonna pull it back out. I'm gonna mark it with my finger. I'm gonna pull it back out and make a little bit of a V, a notch, out of the bottom of this. So as it turns the corner, it's not pinching on itself. Okay, we still have a little touch-up painting to do down through here, but look at that. We have a whole edge put back on here and a whole corner just like that. Point of contention here, but I want all my games on casters, and I want them on casters for two reasons. One is that I do move them around quite a bit in the arcade or from room to room, and if they're not on casters, they're extremely hard to move. And the other is that it does push them off the ground a little higher, but this sinks into the carpet quite a bit. And in the end, it may be just slightly higher than normal, but not much. But every game that comes to me with its leg levers on, they are always shot and rusted, and this wood is already touching the ground. I'm not gonna take any chance to have water damage. So I do put casters on. I use these from Lowe's. They are 125 pounds rated per wheel. So total weight that it can hold is 500 pounds, which is way more than what this is. I do use a bunch of these nice 10 by 3/4 stainless steel screws to put them on in 4 different places into the wood. These are not the same as casters that have a thread that thread into this. I've had some people say, oh, those are kind of dangerous. They are, because I bought those from arcade places before and moved games around and get them kind of on a corner moving, and you can actually break the solder joint off or the weld joint on those and lose an entire wheel. With these, not a chance. 4 spots, very, very heavy duty. I've never had any trouble with them. So there we have it. Got our casters on, we got our T-molding on. I think we're about ready to lift this thing back up off the truck and back onto the ground. rolls. Put Cindy back to work cleaning, getting the paint off the T-molding in the front. It looks like they may have repainted the entire front. So I have to do with that. But here's our new bottom edge of this machine. Well, it's all cleaned up, and I'm just gonna let that adhesive remover dry up a little bit so the whatever sticky is still on there will harden a little bit. You can see the Space Duel right next to it, so I'll be sanding both at the same time, it looks like. All right, let's get this thing sanded. Now that is most of the way cleaned off and sanded down. You can see we have some original holes here that have the little extra notches in them, and a couple up here, and maybe one here, and these maybe some original here and here. I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure all that out and figure out if we can actually use this control panel or not. We are driving 3 hours to pick up a rare monitor for Space Duel. What makes this monitor rare? Space Duel uses a color vector monitor. Most arcade games use raster monitors like old televisions. Raster monitors draw the image one line at a time. Vector monitors work differently. The electron beam draws a series of lines to create an image. It provides a bright wireframe effect, like you see here with Asteroids. The futuristic look was used in other popular arcade games like Battlezone and Lunar Lander. While uncommon, it's not terribly hard to find a standard vector monitor. But some games used a color vector monitor. Tempest is the most common example. It was also used in Star Wars and Space Duel. Color vector monitors are very hard to find. So I put out a plea on the Video Game Museum forums. I made a list of everything I needed. At the same time, someone posted they had 2 extra monitors. He sent me pics, and we made a deal.
Yep, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And?
That's good. And
I'm
this is my
Cindy.
wife, Cindy.
Cindy.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, it was fun to meet you too.
And thanks for helping me out on this project. Well, while we're out and about, might as well go see some video games. One more stop. Vacuums and video games. No joke. Mostly video games. I found the vacuums. There are a ton of video games in there. This is extremely impressive. Burger King. And we've made it home. Safe and sound. We did not break the neck right there. If we had, we would have ruined the entire thing. So thank goodness for that. All right, so let's repair this top back panel for the Space Duel. I've got a little 3M Scotch film backing underneath this so we don't glue it to the board. A little trick that one of the viewers gave me. That's something that we had a decal on at one point in time. I've got these 2 pieces here. I'm going to run some Type Bond 3 in between them. And then I've got this very solid mending plate that I got at Lowe's. You can get these for less than $1. And I'm going to drill some holes and put some screws in to support this to hold it. We still have the top piece to do, but at least if we can get this together, then we can cut out and get our top piece done as well. So I'm gonna get this glued and we'll see what happens. And we'll just let it go against the wood, that's all right. We'll squeeze it together with this clamp. Now I've gone ahead and screwed it into the back of the cabinet here. Here's our fixed seam right here. And you might wonder, why am I even keeping this piece instead of cutting a new one? Well, it's because I want to keep all these serial numbers and other stickers that are on here. That's why. I still have to fix this edge as well, but that part's done. Time to take everything apart inside the Space Tool so we get it properly cleaned up and start putting our new parts, our new original parts, back in. Now the cabinet is all stripped out and not cleaned out yet, not vacuumed out, but cleaned up anyway, just a little bit, getting all that out. Most of the parts that were in there were for Street Fighter 2 and had nothing to do with the original game. And they spliced a lot of the wiring in, so I had to cut some of it. I left some of it spliced. I'll fix that up as we move along. Putting Cindy to work cleaning again. She about got it.
You are cleared for takeoff.
Roger. Huh?
LA departure frequency 123.9er.
Roger. Huh? Request vector. Over. What?
Flight 209er clear for vector 324.
We have clearance, Clarence. Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Today I'm going to be working on the monitor for Space Duel. And there's a low voltage circuit, kind of a protection circuit that comes with the monitor, and it's showing a picture of it right there, and it's not good. So we're going to build a little board with these parts from Arcade Parts and Repair that's going to replace that section to be safe in the long run. So I have to assemble this. Today will be a great day to put a cap kit on this color vector monitor. And I have a cap kit right here from Arcade Parts and Repair. Mega Deluxe cap kits, always high quality. So it's a 19K 6100. It's full of these little cylindrical objects that you can kind of think of as glorified batteries, or maybe even better than batteries. And on the board down below, we can see we have a lot of these same matching capacitors. And what we're going to do is we're going to take them off of these boards and put new ones on. And the reason we do that is because over time, those capacitors age and they affect the signal quite a bit. And so anytime that we're wanting to have a monitor look as nice as possible, we want to go ahead and have fresh caps on it. Now, in order to get all these parts off of here, we want to discharge the monitor. Now, I think that color vector monitors self-discharge, but we're going to be safe. We're going to do it anyway. And this monitor hasn't been powered on for a long time. That doesn't make too much difference. They can hold a charge. So we're going to make sure we have some metal here. We do. We have the whole frame here. Well, we don't need that for the way I'm going to do it. The way I'm going to do it this time is I have a screwdriver with an alligator clip to the frame. Sometimes I just go directly over with the screwdriver. So we're going to go under this cap right here. And we don't want our hand touching any of the metal as we do this, but we're going to slide it under up and in there, and we don't want to scratch the surface either. And we're going to touch the metal pins underneath, and you'll know when you hit them. You can feel them. Just like that, and that should discharge anything that's remaining in the tube out. Then we're going to lift up this cap. I do everything as much as I can one-handed. I'm going to look under. There's a couple of little clips in there, so I'm going to take some needle nose pliers. I'm going to squeeze these clips together out. Just like that. So that's what those clips look like. They're down in that little hole. Now that hole can hold a little charge, and it can even build up a little more charge. So be careful with that. Don't go around touching the hole unless you have to. Now I have done one of these before on my Tempest, but there are a lot of little connectors that have to come off all different places. So I'm going to take a few pictures to remind myself when I put it back together how that goes. Here's our main chassis. So here's how this cap kit's going to work. We're going to remove some caps. Now normally there'll be bigger cylinders, but on this one we're going to replace these little blue non-electrolytic caps with some real ones. And we've got the real ones here, and I say real, but I mean a bigger electrolytic cap. Don't have to worry about the difference too much. These are just a little more robust than what these are. So we find each one. This is C801. Now it's great when they're marked on the back where they are, but they're not. So I'm going to have to kind of lean it over, look at the leads, figure out where this one comes through. It looks like here and here. So I'm going to take my gun, and when I looked away, I lost my spot. We'll put it over that side, let it melt, suction out, and I've got my hand on the cap on the other side to kind of pull on it. And we'll let that melt, and then it comes out in my fingers like that. Now the new cap has a polarity. There's a plus and a minus. So the minus has the big white stripe, the plus doesn't. The plus has a long leg and the minus doesn't. There's a little tape on there from where it was taped to a strip. So we're going to take the new cap. We're going to look over to the other side. We can see we have a plus right here. And sometimes there'll be a black dot where the minus goes. But I always start with a plus with the long leg. Just do it over and over again the same exact way so that I don't get these reversed. If you get one reversed, you're going to have some trouble. You might even have sparks or a little fire, but you're probably going to damage something because they only go one polarity way. Now I'm going to take this, I'm going to take my solder, which is right here. I use this Kester 44. Use it with ventilation. It does have lead in it. I'm in an open ventilated area with a fan that I will use once I do more than one. To solder, which is really pretty easy, you just hold down the gun or the iron on the pad and on the wire at the same time, push the solder into it, let both go, and you've got a nice little joint. And then we can take the clippers and we can clip this little wire, and we can clip this little wire. And then I have a list of everything, and I will mark it off the list. And I'm just going to go through and do all these. When I was putting this little board together, I made a couple mistakes. One, I didn't even see this page in the instructions, and I was looking for a page like this, which had a diagram of where everything went. So I ended up going online and just looking basically at the board itself to figure out where everything needed to be. What I didn't see was there are marked here with 3 giant arrows, areas where you do not cut the legs of the diodes. Well, when I got done, I just trimmed everything nice and flush, and then I couldn't mount this thing on the other board. So I had to remove the diodes that I had on there and order more. So I get to finish putting this thing together today, and then maybe I can put the whole monitor together. Now we have our little board mounted onto the bigger chassis, just like that, with some ceramic spacers in between. Got a couple yellow leads where we need them to be. On the back side, we've got everything cleaned up and flush. Now, in taking off the other components, see that pad lifted right there? That's okay, we didn't need it. But this pad right here, where I'm pointing, was lifting a little bit. And rather than take any chances, I went ahead and ran the end of the wire all the way around to the next solder point, so that because this is all one unit, all connected electrically anyway, if this pad comes up, it doesn't matter, the wire is still connected to that section. So we can put the whole thing back together and fire it up. Now we can start putting all the parts back in this monitor. I have a guide here that Andy Baldwin came up with. It's very detailed on testing all the components as we go. So I'm going to be testing all these frame transistors, making sure that everything is hooked up just right before we start trying to power this thing up. Got a little rust in here I'm going to clean up as well. Look at this wiring harness. That is something. Now, this is my always scary moment. I am going to power up this monitor. I have the transformer that we need for this particular game. Nothing's plugged in on the monitor other than the deflection board is sitting here and it's going to get some power. And we're going to start checking voltages to make sure that before we plug anything else in, this part is working correctly. So I've got my meter set here. I'll be testing some different pins in the low voltage section as we go. But first I'm going to just turn it on and make sure nothing crazy happens. So you shouldn't hear a big whine from this because the high voltage isn't turned on. Probably we'll just hear a hum from this. Hopefully it won't pop a fuse, because if it does, then we've got a bigger problem. So in 3, 2, 1. Okay, little hum. That's what we expect. So I'm good with that. Now I've got the black grounded. So I'm going to test a few different pins here and see what we got. That says 0. Almost 0. These are all basically 0. Well, that's not what that's supposed to do. So I'm going to stop for a minute and check. Now, when I was looking at the monitor, this is the problem here. We got the low voltage section and we weren't getting the correct voltages. And, you know, I put this thing together myself. It was kind of hard. I ended up putting them in backwards and having to switch them. And then I had the diodes I had to take out and put new ones in because I cut the legs too short. So this could be something that I just botched. So there is another one, another type that people make. I've got one in another monitor. Some people don't like this style because it has so many modern components on it and it's not quite as robust maybe as what these parts would be. But I switched it over because we have to know where the problem is. It lies somewhere between the power coming in and going through the fuses and going through some diodes here and coming back out this. So somewhere in this little path, we should be able to find it. I put everything back together and now I've even got more together. But before I put the rest of the components back on, I checked this board out and I got the same results. The voltages coming from everything were too low, like way low, and didn't make any sense. I had the ground for my multimeter over here. When I put the ground on the board and then checked the voltages, they were all correct. So it could just be that this board itself doesn't really get to the monitor frame as far as its ground is concerned, which the monitor frame is grounded over here too, so it's a weird thing. But it is good if you can find a ground close to what you're trying to test rather than far away. And in this case, something was preventing me from using that ground over there to circumvent that. So it looks like this board works okay. So now I've got the AR2, our first power board that comes off this transformer block. And I'm going to power it up and check the output voltages. And then we're going to power up this monitor with it and see if it comes up. Now I have everything hooked up, even the game board, and I can check the 5 volts on the board, which is our main power to the board. 5.01 volts, which is perfect. Now, according to the startup guide, I should hear some chatter on the monitor, but it shouldn't be doing anything because we don't have the high power voltage. I don't hear the chatter, but maybe that's not something I'm going to hear. The chatter is where it's drawing all these lines, but it's not high voltage, so it's barely drawing them, I would imagine. So I will go to the next step and hook up the rest of the monitor. Now I have the high voltage circuit plugged back in, and I have right here a high voltage probe, and underneath that probe there's a metal tip that's going all the way up and touching a metal clip on the anode up there. This high voltage probe is going to let us use my multimeter here to see what the voltage is on the monitor, and we want to set it to, I'll double check, about 19,000 volts, so which is a lot. The high voltage probe is grounded to the frame, and then there's the black and red there. So basically it's lowering the voltage down to something that my multimeter can handle. So I'm going to power this up and see where we are. Okay, I've got the monitor on. It's at 18.5 kilovolts. So it's slightly low, but I'm going to check and see if that's within range. Here's where I am with this. I've got the high voltage working, I know the low voltage, at least some of that board works on the deflection board. There's a lot of things that can still be wrong with the monitor. I have the game board now plugged in. I have the AR2 power board plugged in. Transformer, of course. Lots of wires that just go to nothing right now. And some go to things like the test switch. So we don't know how that's going to affect things. Who knows? But I'm going to power this up and see if anything happens. All right, here we go. Testing, 3, 2, 1. This monitor's got a beautiful sound to it, but I don't know if it will have any picture. And I'm not really seeing or hearing anything. There is a red light in here. That's a spot killer. It should come on and then turn off if this is getting a good signal, and the light is on. So it's killing itself for some reason. That I'll have to spend more time on. Now, one cool thing you can do with these vector games is you can leave it unattached from the monitor, and you can hook up an oscilloscope to the output. So there's a Y out and an X out over here, and each one of these are hooked to the ground on the board. And if we come over and look at the oscilloscope, we can see waveforms for both our X and our Y dimensions. And if you have an XY mode on your scope, you can put that in XY mode, and then you should be able to see, I'll bring it up here, your game on the right. And it should look like what you expect your game to look like, just in green in this case. But this is very zoomed in, and it's basically just making a spot in the center of the screen. So it's not doing what it's supposed to do. And when the monitor reads a signal like that, it's supposed to turn on the spot killer and kill the signal. Because if you don't, it can make a beam right in the middle of the monitor, which will burn it in over time. So that's the purpose of that. I'm not getting anything there. If I come over with my standard multimeter and I measure these, if I hold it on the Y out right here, it's at 0.24 volts, 240 millivolts. This should be fluctuating up and down between basically 0 and 2 volts. And the up and down is it drawing different things. So it's not really drawing anything on that direction, and it's not really drawing anything on this direction either, the X. So something on this board isn't doing what it's supposed to do. May not be the board that's a problem, could be something with our power to the board, but there are test points all over this that we can check our voltages. Like for instance, right here it should be minus 15 volts, and if I hold it here you can see minus 15.1. So I can do that all over the board. They all match. The board's just not doing anything. So now this goes to these control panel parts here, the internal control panel. So I'll get this assembled, but I've got almost everything else, I think, in place other than the board. Okay, I've got that all wired back in. I've actually got the coin door up, the control panel up. I have some extra wires here, and they are speaker wires for the speakers that are missing. So I've purchased new speakers, and I'll get those installed now. Now I got a dang hummingbird flying around in here like an idiot. And you can open garage doors and they will never ever fly out on their own. So what you have to do is you have to hang a hummingbird feeder down here off the front of your garage door. This is just a special extra bonus trick for my viewers. And eventually that dumb hummingbird will come down and fly out. All right, I have those temporarily mounted until I get to Lowe's and get the exact size screws I need, but those will hold it for now. And now on to some of the control panel wiring. It is a pretty good mess. And I have a whole bag of buttons and switches from Andy Baldwin. And we also have some volcano buttons, which are the light up buttons for start. I've got those that I ordered reproductions of. So I'm gonna start putting these things on according to the wiring diagram. Now here's a quick test. I've got it turned on, transformers humming, the monitor is unplugged, but I do have the bulb in the marquee and it's on. Yay. I went to Lowe's and got this piece of steel that we're going to use to cover up this control panel. And I think, since I don't have any way to weld it and I want it welded on, I'll just ask on Facebook if I can find somebody around here who can do that. Lots of welders and machine trades people in this town. It's a very industrial town. We have a GM plant. So surely to goodness somebody can help me out with this. All right, so this is Scott. Scott's gonna help me with this. We're gonna cut this sheet down a little bit and weld it on. Just like that, we are welded on. So if we flip it over, looks like that. Now to fill in these control panel holes, I'm going to take some fiberglass resin and I'm going to put it in here, and we'll take some hardener and we'll mix it all up, and then I'm just going to pour it in until we get it pretty level. It's really pretty straightforward. One coat done, and some of the areas have shrunk down a little bit or soaked in a little bit, which is pretty normal for this. I've also made a mess where I've gotten it just about everywhere, but that's pretty typical. So I'm going to mix up just a little bit more. I've got my cup, new stirrer, and I'm going to fill in where it has sunk in. Now, for the most part, I have it nice and smooth, but I have a few little spots where there are a couple little low points here and there, so I've got to mix up just a little bit more, fill those in, and then I think we'll be pretty well set. Try to get this control panel overlay lined up with the existing buttons as best I can. And I'll tape it down and draw out where I want the other buttons to be. I just made a quick trip to Lowe's to pick up this step bit. It's $60, but I'm going to need it. I've tried to cut through this metal with some of my normal tools, and none of them can really handle the sheet metal. So this should go down. Now we need to center each one so that as we're cutting, we don't end up cutting around where it doesn't belong. I've drawn a black square in each one, but I've also bought this washer that is exactly 1 1/8 inch, and it fits right into here. So then I can draw a little circle in the middle and center that. That's the fastest way for me to find the center of each one of these, because I'm going to drill a pilot hole for the step bit to go through. I've started with some really small pilot holes, and now we use a little bigger bit. Now I have these drilled out. I've been using one button along the way just to make sure they'll drop down into place. And they all seem to fit pretty much exactly where I want them to be. And I did not destroy any of the other resin cutting these holes, which is a big plus. So that's some pretty strong stuff. Now I just have these two here for our start and select lights, and we'll get those in next. Well, that really wasn't too hard with that correct drill bit. So I've got all these holes cut, even got the holes for start and select, the little light up buttons. I'll sand this up just a little bit more, and then we'll be ready to paint it. I did make quite the mess though. Okay, I had a little mishap here with the Space Duel. This is the AR2 board, and it's been recently serviced, and you can see there's a transistor there with a new pad on the back. When I plugged this in, I accidentally plugged in that plug into that one and that plug into this one. Now that didn't do anything on its own, but then when I switched them back and turned the machine on, then smoke came from the back of this, and it actually burned up a trace right in this area right here by that other transistor. And so I am going to have to fix that. Now that's a bigger problem than maybe what this board has. So I got another board when I bought all this combo stuff. This one I plugged in, and it's running 13 volts on the 5-volt section. And that's almost always because that bottle cap transistor there has blown. So I've taken the screws out. I'm going to replace that. When it blows, it tears up that resistor R29 right there, so I've got a replacement for it. And I'll just use this as a backup board until I can do a little more extensive repairs on that one. All right, so that's new. I've popped out this resistor. You can see what it looks like. This is what happens when you have a bad edge connector, and the sense part of this senses that the voltage is too low. It keeps raising it up, and it ends up burning up this resistor. So we've got a replacement here. It's a little beefier. And when we put it on, we're going to keep it up off the board a little bit, so if it ever does burn again, it won't burn the board. Well, that didn't fix the problem, but then I came around and I looked at R30 here, and it's also completely smoked and trashed, so I will fix that one too. Now this is the original board that smoked a little bit. It smoked from this area right here. I've repaired the trace with a little piece of wire, and I put in a new transistor on the other side to replace the one in that spot, because if that's where the burn was, I assume that's probably where our problem was. Well, let's see if I make this thing smoke again. Should know pretty quickly. I don't see any smoke, but I don't see any voltage either. Okay, I did find a resistor to repair the second board, and it is putting out 5.08. So it looks like that has taken care of the repair on that one. So we'll use this one for now. I still have the other one to figure out, and maybe we can go ahead and get the board hooked up. Well, on the board we get close to 5 volts, plus 5 volts, but we don't get any of our other voltages. I'm not getting the minus 15s and all these others. So that means that that AR2 board in there is not doing everything it's supposed to. Now, I think I have both of these AR boards repaired again. The one that I burned up earlier, I replaced the bottle cap transistor, and now it gives out 5 volts. But it didn't have the other voltages, all the minus and all those, just like the secondary board. So I went down and checked the fuses, and 2 of the fuses were blown. So I put 2 new fuses in, and we're gonna see if they just blow immediately or if we're okay now. All right, well, nothing's on fire, so that's good. Okay, the fuses did not blow. So let's power it back up and see where we are. Great, 5.184, perfect. So I'm gonna hook the board back up and then we can test all those voltages on the board. All right, so now we're good. We have, it's supposed to be minus 15. It's minus 15, plus 15, plus 15. Everyone I've tested, 5 volts, all that right on the money. So I think our power issue is solved. Now, making the game work, whole nother problem. Now here's something different. When I go to the X out, or let's go Y out first, you can see the values going up and down. That's what they're supposed to do. That means it's trying to draw something. It does the same now for the X. So we may be in better shape now. Okay, I hooked everything up all the way to the monitor. And look, it's working. The game is working. That is awesome. It works, it works. I can't really control them. But I did get a game to start. So that's pretty awesome. Look out! Now I've lightly sanded this control panel back down. We don't want any bumps from the paint, and I got it all wiped down so we don't have any residue. This is what it looks like now. You can see just under the black paint where all the old buttons and holes used to be. Pretty soon we'll have that all hidden because we have the control panel overlay here, which is a self-adhesive, and it is extremely sticky and very thick. So the first thing we're gonna do is line it up with this and kind of get it positioned the way we want, and then we can start peeling off the adhesive backing and putting it down for real. Now the next step is I'm going to start from here and work my way this direction. Then I'm going to come back and work my way this direction. So I need to cut off this backing from this section right here. So I'm going to get it peeling, kind of like this. Now, we want to push it down starting here. I'm going to use this soft cloth. And we're just gently going back and forth. We want it to just lay down over where we're going. We don't want to stretch it or pull it. We just want it to gently lay down. And we got to get it down into this groove back here as we go. I'm going to stop and look for any large bubbles. I don't see anything. So we've made it over the hump. Okay, another check. So we're all the way down, because you do have some opportunity to pull this back up if you need to. Now this is the hard part, is when you're doing a big bend like this, it's very easy for it to get twisted. So you really just have to grab a few spots and get them started. And if we get little airs trapped in here, like I just did, we'll just pull it back up a little bit and we'll work this section again. Now, from this side, that looks beautiful. Now we got to work our way back this way. Now we'll lift this side back up. All right, and we're done. Now, that looks awesome. I love the art on this. All nice and smooth. If you push really, really hard and run your fingers across, you might be able to feel the remnant of a buttonhole or some lump here or there. I can't really. It's definitely close enough. And when we put the rest of the buttons on, you'd never know anyway, because they're going to be in the way of putting your hands all smooth. I think it looks great. Now I can add the buttons back in. So these are the small push buttons, red and green. These are what go on the back side, and we'll connect up to the wiring harness over here. I have our manual here, also a diagram or a photo of how this is all wired up to go by as well, so I can see how it was done originally. So I'll get the buttons in. All the buttons are on, and now I've got this wiring harness over here. I've got to figure out where everything goes to. Plus I got to add the volcano buttons back in. All wired up. The control panel wiring looked great in that photo I went off of, but it has a problem that when you hinge this over, all the wires hit this board and then it won't close. So I looked in the schematics of the game or the diagrams in the manual, and they do show all of these go in this direction, which seems a little counterintuitive, but it does give them plenty of room to go down and inside, just like that. Well, I'm ready to kick this back on and see if any of this works. All right, I hear the monitor going. That's a good sign. Yay! All right, so the game still works. 1 coin, 1 game. Yay, all right. 1 player. Oh, good. This works. Now press start. It's working, but I have no sound. Oh, there it is. It's my shields. My thrust doesn't work. So I cannot thrust. That's easy enough. The wire's just not quite making contact when I push it. So I'm going to bend the adjustment down and get it a little closer. It's working. Now I have everything in here nice and neat, tied down. I figured out where all the harness originally attached to everything, got it all attached. There originally were a couple shelves here for the circuit board, and they're gone, like plastic rails to slide it in. So I've added these feet to the board, and then I'm going to set it in there and drill some holes and put that against the side of it. is mounted. Plug back in. Now on this coin door, there's an old lock in it with no key. So I've got some locks down here to match. So I'm gonna take that lock out, put one of my locks in. That lock, I don't have a key for, and it's not something I've been able to open. So we may have to drill that one out. Good. So I've just got a kind of a medium-sized drill bit to get in here, and a little thread cutting oil just to lubricate this so the metal doesn't get too hot. And then we're just gonna drill it in. Yay! For the first time in years, we're in. And besides cobwebs, it doesn't look like there's anything interesting in here. No coin bucket.
No money?
No money. Well, now we have unlockable coin doors, and I have an extra coin bucket, so I'll put it down in that bottom one. Yes, I know there's rust on that thing. Yes, I know the front of this still looks terrible. Not working on any cosmetic stuff on that just yet. Just want to get it put together for now. I did find some quarters lodged in there, so I've made $1.50 off this today. I'm not getting any audio out of the top speakers. And the audio for the bottom speakers comes out of a couple pins here, and the audio for the top speaker comes from a couple pins right here. And if we follow this back, this goes to this amplifier right here. So I'm going to take that off. I've got a couple replacements. I don't know why, but I do, in a container that looks really old. So I'm going to try one on and see if that makes a sound come back to the top. So there's the old one out. I'm going to call this new, but it looks like I have pulled it from something else at some point in time. Well, still no audio from the top. Get it from the bottom, but not the top. So it's got to be something else. Okay, retracing my steps, looking all around, what I can see is that the top speakers are wired exactly as the bottom ones are. So there's no separate sound to the top compared to the bottom. Whatever sounds go into those speakers also go into these. So if the bottom ones work, then the top one should work. This brown is the power coming in. And if you look, that has pulled out of its slot, so it is not connected anymore. So this may be a good reason why we're not getting any sound. So I'll see if I can fix that. Well, that was it. New connectors, plug, and now these top speakers work. So I'll put it back together. All right. Now we got it. That's a shaker. And away we go. The trees are all in. Maybe not their final resting spot, but they're in for now. And there's the best tree ever. Yay, bananas. Well, it's spring again, and now I can get my garage cleared out a little bit and bring some games into the work area. So we still have to finish Super Monaco GP, a little work left to do on Space Duel, and then we'll be starting on the big next project, Night Driver. All right, I'm over in my brother-in-law's wood shop, and I've got this piece at the top. I've got a replacement board that's gonna go across the middle of this, and then we're gonna patch the whole thing in. But first, I need to clean up these edges and make them square again. So I'm gonna use this bandsaw to do that. I'm gonna rotate this blade and try to get it to the same angle as the existing. So that angle looks great, looks just like the old angle. Now I've cut this board down to width and also to the length that we want. And now we have our piece that will patch in right across the top, just like that. Now our new board is a little thinner than the old board, which happens a lot due to the way they measured particle board back then compared to now. They've changed it a little bit. So I've got some paint sticks from Lowe's that will make a perfect filler. So I'm gonna cut a few pieces for support here, like a shim, so we can put another board over the top and have it be flush. Now I have everything laying out here that we will need for this repair. So I've got all the boards and pieces that I've cut. I've got some gloves. I got some tape that I put down on the board underneath to make sure we don't glue anything to. We'll get some wood glue, we'll get a nail gun, and we'll assemble this. All right, so on to the back door. First thing I'm gonna do is use some Minwax wood hardener, and I'm gonna go all around the edges and brush it on and let it soak into the particle board so that we have a nice solid surface, no flaking on the outside. And time for a little more Bondo work. Got this corner to put back in the back door, among other things, so we'll get that today. Now we have a second coat of Bondo, some sanding. I think this is about as good as I need the back door to be. So we'll get some paint and we'll paint it shortly. I've got my back door and my top of the back piece right here. I've got some satin black paint, oil-based, which is what I like to use. Some thinner, I'm gonna mix some in that Grillo's pickles container right there. I like the paint to be a little thinner so it runs into the crevices a little bit more, forms a smoother surface when it dries. Got my cabinet, foam cabinet roller, mixer, all that kind of stuff. Let's do it. We have our back. It's done. Now I'm going to have to take these doors off in order to clean up all this extra rust that we have here and there and bend it back to shape and so on. The top door just has a few spots that are bad compared to the bottom, but we need to make it look nicer. Now we have our coin doors looking nice and neat. I've got these Sharpie oil-based markers, and I'm going to see if we can touch up some of this side art where all the scratching is. Okay, it turns out that no matter what we do, we can't quite match the colors the way we want. There's a little bit here and there. And if we really wanted to do this, we would have to draw in every single line all the way around. So here's what I'm gonna do. I don't mind when the side art is a little scuffed and scratched up. I really don't like all this down here, but it is the original art. And I'm happy enough that that's still there. Same thing on this side, although this side looks much better. It would be nice to be perfect, but it doesn't have to be. I'd rather take the original than a reproduction. And if we did a reproduction on this, we'd have to basically take all the vinyl off and put a whole new thing on each side. So I think I'm just gonna leave it as is and just be happy that it's still there. I have this airbrush kit and a bunch of airbrush oil-based paints. So I found some shades of blue and some white, and I'm gonna see what I can match using these paints. Now I have tried many combinations of blue now trying to match this light blue, and it's either too blue, or as I lighten the blue with more light blue, it becomes a little too gray and it doesn't match very well. I've done a bunch of spots down through here, just kind of paint over a little bit here and there, trying to find the best possible match, because I would like to just go over these lines again with something that's a little closer than this steel gray pen that we had. I'm not sure if I can, but all this will rub off. There's a layer of Armor All on this so that before I start putting this on, I can rub all this off with Magic Eraser, and then I'll decide if I want to try to do anything more with it or not. And in the end, I'm kind of back where I started. So we'll leave the scratches. I like it better than with the touch-up paint. I think we're done. All right, so that does it for another episode of Todd's Video Games and More. This was kind of a fun project. I really didn't know what to expect. I didn't even know what it was like to play this game, but I do now, and it's fun. Will it stay in the arcade? That's a good question. I'm pretty low on space, but this beautiful monitor, I might have to find a place for it. So what's next? Well, I do have other projects to wrap up. I have an Aliens and Super Monaco GP kind of combo video to do. I have a really trashed Atari Night Driver, and that's going to be a doozy. As a matter of fact, I'm knee-deep in rust and rotted out particle board as we speak. So anyway, I appreciate all the help that I had on this. The people on the forums, the suppliers that keep all these old parts in stock, Andy Baldwin, who is my go-to for all things vector machines. Thank you very much. And as always, thank you for watching my channel. I enjoy the comments. I enjoy seeing all that interaction, and I hope you enjoy these videos. Well, until next time, keep on gaming.